Alright, you're welcome back to the fourth video on research writing. Now, remember at the beginning I said you'll be given some guidelines from your school, but if you've not been given and you need details, you can send an email to quiveranalytics@gmail.com. Alright, so this is just an overview of, I want you to have an idea of what it takes. Most times, research writing can be tedious, it can be overwhelming, and people don't have an idea of what to do. Well, this is not part of chapter two, but it's part of the whole thing. Um, to start a research, one of the things I do is to try as much as possible to get resources, a lot of resources. You can download PDFs, you can bookmark some, and put them in different folders. The more you read, the more you've studied, the more you can write. You know, there's a joke or a riddle on writing, on especially research writing. You can be surfing and surfing and searching for a whole day, and you have read 20 journals, and you've just been able to write one paragraph. It's very, very possible. All right, but with appropriate searches and good good knowledge of what you want to do, you you won't have to do so much um, stress. All right, so for chapter two, it's basically divided into four or five sections. The first one is the introduction, which, depending, some schools or departments or supervisors would not want it. Some would just want something little. So you just introduce the chapter and tell them what to expect in the chapter. So you can always write the introduction aspect last. So you say, in this chapter, the conceptual review will be done, the theoretical review, you can state the theories that will be reviewed, and then the empirical review, and then the gap will be identified. It's as simple as that. Introduce why you are reviewing literature, that's existing works, past works. Why are you reviewing them, and then how are you reviewing them? The subtopics in the uh, in the chapter will be stated in the introduction. All right, so that's part one, which may be or may not be in your chapter two, depending on the guideline that's been given to you. So now we have conceptual review. Conceptual review and framework basically highlights, talks about the independent variables and the dependent variable separately. Not You are not trying to establish a relationship between them, just separately. So you can see here recruitment. Recruitment is an intentional exercise, usually carried out blah blah blah. Okay, then I need to state something after this. I think this place a citation needs a citation. So who said it? You know, who said it? Because for every statement of fact that you make, you have to cite it. You don't have to go a long way before putting the citation. All right. So recruitment is usually done in line with, of course, except you have read all of this, you have brought out all of this from these authors. All right. Okay. So this is recruitment, which is part of the independent variables, and then we have selection, also part of the independent variables. It doesn't have to be this much. It can be two paragraphs or two short paragraphs or one long paragraph. Then you have talent management and retention. You know, Yet we are not. Then we have working environments. Think, yeah. So those are the working environment is supposed to be a moderating variable. So just explaining what the variables are. What the variables are. So after the conceptual review, you can create a conceptual framework. So how visually explain what's how what the relationship we expect. So you can see the independent variables, recruitment and selection, and we have talent retention. So this is the first hypothesis: recruitment and retention on talent management or talent retention. Then second hypothesis: recruitment and selection on the moderating variable, that's dynamic work environment, and the work environment on this. So since it is a null hypothesis, we are expecting that this will be rejected, this will be rejected, this will be rejected, for us to conclude that this is a moderating variable. Okay, null hypothesis means that we are saying that there is no relationship or association or effect between recruitment and selection and talent retention. So why we reject it, that is when the p-value of the inferential test is less than 0.05, less or equal to 0.05, then we reject it. So if we are rejecting a null hypothesis, if you are rejecting a negative statement, that means it is positive. That means that recruitment selection is related or causes um, talent retention. All right. So the same thing for hypothesis 2, same thing for hypothesis 3. That is on conceptual review. Now the second part of um, literature review is the theoretical review. What are the theories you want to talk about here? What are the theories you want to use to explain these relationships? All right, so here the resource-based theory, I explained three theories: equity theory and Pesto model. All right, so you can use it. The way it's done is that you write about the theory or the model, then how does this theory, for the rest of two paragraphs or one, how does it relate the application of this theory to the ongoing study? This is what you explain for most parts of the write-up under each model or theory. Alright, so that's on theoretical review. Then the third part of chapter 2 is the empirical review. Now, for the empirical review, this is where we want to check what has been said about these relationships. So now we take it one after the other, especially in the order of the objectives or the research questions or hypotheses. So here we have effect of recruitment or selection on talent retention. So you can see in Kenya, a study was recently carried out, blah blah blah, 2021, by this guy in 2021. Et al. Means and others. When you have three or more authors, you can use et al. All right. Using the human capital, blah blah blah. So here we summarize what these people studies, what was the objective, what was the findings, who are the people that were studied, so puts it in a paragraph, one paragraph per author. Also, this is another person, and another person in Nigeria, another person in Ghana, and so on. Those are all on retention and on recruitment, selection, and retention. Then dynamic work environments, studies that has been done on dynamic work environments, you pick them up, review them, put them in one chapter. Pick them up, review them, put them in one paragraph. Now, if you look at this, although I have some 2013 here, personally I wouldn't like that, but I prefer using 3 to 5 years citations. Like this is 2024, and I wouldn't want to use anything less than 2019. And because of COVID in 2020, I prefer to use 2021, 2022, 2023 in my works. All right, because they are more recent, they are more you can you can they are more relatable. They are more recent. Now, after writing all this, as you are reading the studies, you begin to see their limitations. Oh, this one considered this, it did not consider that. This one considered this, it did not consider that. By the time you bring all those shortcomings together, you identify the gap in existing literature which your own literature, your own study wants to address. So, say that you can most of the studies, of course, you can see effect of recruitment selection on dynamic work environments. Like most of them were not have not considered dynamic work environments as it affects retention. You know, that could be a gap. You can also see that there has been no Nigerian work so far. That could be a gap. You know, so different things you can bring about from reviewing other studies. When you truly review other studies, you will be able to identify gaps. So one thing about models is that by the time you've read existing studies, you would start noticing the models that were used in explaining those relationships. You write them down or you draw them somewhere else in a table. Sometimes in chapter 2 we have table of review literature review under at the final tail of chapter 2 around here. But you know, it's not here, it's not needed, not everybody wants it. So you start to see recurring models that has been used by different studies. You can use such models as well. The same thing with methods. If if you notice that majority of the papers have been using association, chi-square, or correlation, or regression, or logistic regression, then the one that occurs the most, you can decide to use it to, except you have your reasons for using others as well. The same thing with sample size. You can keep noticing how many sample size have they been using, you can use it to justify your own sample size as well. So to recap, chapter 2 is basically in five broad aspects and three narrow aspects. So the five broad aspects includes the introduction and the gap in literature, while the main three are in between the five. After the introduction, you have the conceptual review, which is the main one. Then you have different variables explained under the conceptual review. Remember, no relationship, just the variables stand alone. Then the second one is the theoretical review. Like I said, bring out the theories that are most used in existing literature and that you feel is more applicable, because you have to talk about the application. Um, use two or three, fine. Then the last one is the empirical review. Empirical review is also subtitled by objectives, and look for specific works that have been done by in those lines, and report them chapter after chapter, and you would have a very great chapter 2. All right, thank you, and we'll see in the next video.